This week on Days of Our Lives, really fun week, the week of October 6th through the 10th, and yeah, great stuff happened. I mean, JJ and Paige, who am I kidding? EJ! Officially, this was James Scott's last week of filming since he stopped filming the week of May 2nd. So they kind of killed him off this week. This is gonna be a really hard episode, guys. I'm sorry. I mean, I've pretty much been dead inside for a few days, 'cause this guy not coming back, you know? This guy right here, we're all gonna miss him. But he's staying on my wall, you know. Casey Diedrich's still on there, Chandler Massey still there. Always gonna be in our hearts and in our fondest memories of this age of days. And next week's gonna be really hard, but you know what? There's a division in the fandom, because some people are saying, hey, he's dead, he's totally dead, and he's not coming back because James Scott's leaving the show. And some people are like, oh no, he died, but it's totally faked. You know, he took a drug, you know, like Juliet did, and he just looks dead. And, or, you know, they need to have a happy ending for him and Sami. That's how they're going to leave the show. They're going to leave the show happy. So, I mean, I'm more leaning on the side of he is faking, but there are a lot of people in the fandom who think he actually is dead. And he may be actually dead. You know, maybe Stefano is going to be the one to revive him. We really don't know. So, you know, just keep the conversation going, and let's keep up the positivity that, you know, EJ is, you know, available to come back someday. Because James Scott said he maybe. Let's get through the rest of this review, shall we? At the beginning of the week, EJ found out from Victor that Stefano found out that EJ was the one who gave Rafe the evidence to keep Stefano from getting bail at his bail hearing. Turns out it was Chad, because Kate knew, and Kate told Chad, and Chad told Stefano. So Stefano calls his son. He knows everything, and he is appalled. He is disowning his son. You are dead to me. And EJ knows that this is really bad. He knows that bad things happen when Stefano feels betrayed by a member of his family, especially from his sons. He makes a list. You know, Peter was stranded in jail. Tony was stranded on an island, left to rot. You know, and, you know, Kristen was left in her mess for a long time. Lexi was kidnapped, and Chad doesn't really get the gravity of the situation, but I have a feeling he will. And Sami kind of threatens him, you know, you don't know who you're dealing with. This is EJ DeMare. You are in over your head, son. So, two people found out about EJ and me getting back together and aren't very happy about it. Eric found out last week, but now he tells Caroline. So Will finds out from his mom. Will's not very happy. Says, are you trying to tell me this was Abigail's fault that she seduced EJ? I mean, she's right out of college. And I'm just thinking, Will, she's right out of college. Yeah, I think a 22 to 24-year-old woman can seduce a 30-year-old man in a bad relationship. I think that's possible. Maybe that couldn't happen for you, but that's actually what happens, which I really like that. Because, you know, we actually get a little taste of that later with, you know, Ben and Abigail, and she says, oh, I was totally lying about going slow. I'm a total hypocrite. I'm like, yes, you are. But we'll get to that later. So Caroline finds out and goes to the mansion, and she says, I want to know your reasons for getting back together with EJ, because I want to make sure they're the right reasons. And this is really kind of convoluted, because if you recall, the last time that Caroline visited her granddaughter was when she was convincing Sami to forgive him or give him a second chance, because she's like, I was EJ, I cheated on Sean, and he forgave me, and we raised a family together. And so Sami is basically giving Caroline back those reasons that she gave her originally. She says, you know, I was only angry because I love him so much, and bottom line is I love him, and so I'm gonna forgive him because he's more than made up for it. She even brings up Grandpa Sean, so really, it's like the same conversation backwards. Bill also talks to Chad about the article that he's writing, and Chad's like gung-ho to get back at EJ. He doesn't not care what happens to his brother. He makes that abundantly clear. And Will is very hesitant because he doesn't want the words that he publishes to somehow backfire. EJ comes by and says, hey, you should write it. I think that'll be good. So at this point, I'm kind of wondering, EJ maybe has a plan, and maybe by Chad's animosity toward his brother being published, that will give him maybe a motive if something were to happen to EJ. So, hope for EJ having a plan here. EJ also had a great conversation with his son before all that drama happened. Johnny got made fun of at camp because of his last name, and, EJ said, "You are your own man," and, people are going to say things because they're ignorant and they don't know us, and they don't know you, but just be strong and be proud of your name because you are Johnny, not just Tamara. And then he gave his son a hug. Okay, so EJ gets a phone call from Miguel, who is his man, who is meeting with Clyde. Clyde is working some sort of thing with EJ. He wants to trap him somehow. And, he's selling the product outside of EJ's designated territory. And so EJ and Miguel are, conspiring like, oh, let's set up a meeting. So they're at the park. The kids are all at Will's house at the party for the welcome home from camp party that Will and Sunny are hosting. And EJ's in the park, and, he meets Clyde, and Clyde starts going off on him, you don't know what you're doing, you're just, in your mansion with your mistress, and your father never taught you how this works. Then you get a punch, then a gunshot, and, whoa, what happened? And so Miguel is actually the one who shot him, and Clyde's like, whoa, what are you doing that for? That was really sloppy. And, Miguel's like, oh, he tried to shoot you. So I guess we're supposed to think that Miguel's on Clyde's side, but I'm thinking that Miguel is on EJ's side, and, Miguel and EJ kind of planned this, and, everyone's going to think that he's dead, including Clyde, and including Sami, and including Stefano. He's cleaned up the area nicely, this is clearly not Clyde's first kill, he knows what he's doing. And then Sami shows up, and oh my god, she just, breaks down, and her main focus is to make the blood stop bleeding. She's saying, oh, this is just, what he does. This has happened multiple times. We just need to get the blood to stop bleeding, get him breathing, and he will be totally fine, just like all of the other times that, this has happened, and we had to give him CPR. And she just keeps playing this over in her mind, and, this is her entire focus. And it gets really sad because EJ is stuttering to breathe and to say I love you and tell the kids this, and he starts to get very pale. And when he says I love you, Samantha, she says I love you too, and they share one last kiss. And then yeah. So then Sami says, I love you, 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 EJ Tamara, I love you, I love you, I love you, like 20 million times until the paramedics arrive and they call it, and Sammy's like, no, he's totally fine, let's get him to the hospital, go, go, go! You just see her staring off into the distance, and there's this great scene where Stefano calls her and he's just like, tell my son to get on the phone, he cannot hide from me, why can't I not talk to him? And she's like, you can't, they took him to the morgue, and she just drops the phone. So I don't know if that really registered with her. She was, relaying information. Like Rafe said, she was just totally in shock. It was like he was telling her his room number. And if you have not cried at this episode yet, you will by the time you get to the morgue scene where Sami tries to hear his heartbeat, because that's her thing. That's their thing. She can't hear it. And that's when she breaks down and realizes, oh my god, my husband really is dead. And she cries, and we cry, and wow, it was bad. So other things that are happening this week, John remembers everything that happened. He tries to talk to Teresa, and he realizes that she's totally guilty, as does, Daniel and Kristen. John brings everybody in the room and says, oh yeah, it was so much worse than what Teresa said. I was in a rage, and Brady, you were just drunk, and it was totally not your fault, son. And he's lying to everybody, except for, the few select people who know that he's covering. And so we don't really know what his plan is, but damn, he was smart about this. Kristen was right. She goes to him and she's like, John, you assessed the situation and made a call, but this was the wrong call, and Teresa is not going to get away with this. Julie also visits Eve because Jennifer's like, I need help with this whole JJ thing. Julie just likes poking her nose into everything. But JJ and Paige are actually having some little trouble right now. Paige can see that JJ is pulling away from him, and she's kind of giving herself, which is, a big deal when they're babysitting Parker. And JJ just can't get this whole rape thing out of his head, It's like, I am my father. What if I do something bad like this? And I've been with a lot of girls, and this whole thing is just making him think. So it's a combination of the pictures and the other girl and Aunt Kayla's rape thing and Eve saying JJ is just like his father. all these things are building up and the pressure, and he's going to be pushing Paige away, which is going to come in really bad next week when Paige tells him that she's ready to make love. So back to Ben and Abigail. She wants to go slow at first because they really don't have a place to go fast. Of course, they're both really into the relationship, and they're not very stable, not really realistic characters. Really not liking Ben's character at all. He's gorgeous to look at, but he's really stupid and really, really dumb. And why do you like Abigail? Ben also borrowed money from his father Clyde, which Jordan finds out. She's extremely mad about it, and now she's telling Ben to stay away from their father, when originally it was Ben telling her to stay away from him. So, this whole borrowing money from Clyde thing could be a slippery slope as he offers to pay for his schooling. Jordan also gets asked out by Chad because, he just wants to get back in with Salem, which also could cause some friction between Jordan and Abigail because they're like best friends, and it's kind of weird because she's dating his brother, and now it might get even more weird if she starts dating her ex. She didn't give him an answer yet, but things might get complicated once everybody realizes that Chad's brother has passed away. A really sad episode, guys. I'm really sorry you had to see this, but, let's pray for he's actually okay, and he's just waiting for all the drama to settle down to get his kids and his wife out of there. It was foreshadowing last week when Susan came, and they were like, hey, if anything turns south, we could always backpack it out over to England. One last thing, guys, I started this hashtag called #GoodbyeEJ, and, I tweeted it out, I Tumblred it, I Facebooked it, and then suddenly, the next day, NBC Days tweeted out, we're saying #GoodbyeEJ, join us. And I'm like, hey, that was totally my idea. Thanks, guys. I mean, you're just spreading my hashtag. That's awesome. I want everybody to know that I totally started it, and if you don't believe me, here's proof. I hope everybody has refilled their tissue boxes, because next week you might need some more, as Sami is going to be covering herself with all of EJ's clothes and all of his ties, waiting for answers. Alright, let's take a breather and see you next week in Salem. Bye.